one day without informing anybody. Because
Not your parents.
yeah, if I inform, then I will be brought back. So I just managed to. There were no cell phones and no. Internet. So I looked at travel guides and I went to the Himalayas.
And how did you go there? By train or something?
Oh, by train, by bus, and then by walking. So when I reached Badrinath, I was pretty tired because I had walked quite a bit, and I thought that this might be a few piles because I saw many teachers, but I was not very happy with them. And then, on the verge of giving up, I suddenly went into a cave, which is still there, near Badrinath, which is 14,000 feet above sea level. And there we are in the midst of the ice-clad mountains. I saw there's a cave. It's called the Cave of Vyasa.
How did you find it?
Everybody knows the cave.
You know
I
where it
was
was.
looking around. There was nobody there. Now it has become a big circus. But then there was nothing. So I went inside and I saw this man who I remember seeing for 5 minutes near my house at the age of 9. I met him and he said, so you wandered and come back today. So I said, I think I'll be with you for life. So he smiled and he said, we'll think about it. So I was with him for 3 years.
And he was your master, your tutor, who you're
He
there.
was my teacher, my friend, my father, my mother, everything rolled into one.
Yeah.
He looked after me, he taught me, and he brought about some change in my consciousness so that what has happened, in one way it's good, in another way it's not so good because I can't be put in a box and come out of the box. I don't know anymore if I'm a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or nothing. I think that's not bad in some way. Some people might think it's bad, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
And so I began to recognize that we are human beings.
Yeah.
Simple, clear and simple. We're human beings. We may be this or that depending on our birth and our training, but we can never forget that we are human. This is the most important thing.
Yeah, and as such, he also became a well-known spiritual leader in India now, promoting interfaith harmony and peace. This kind of makes me think of Mahatma Gandhi. How would you say you're different or similar to him?
I really don't want to compare myself with Mahatma Gandhi, but this much I can tell you. Mahatma Gandhi was also a highly spiritual man. Let's not say religious. I'd like to make a small distinction between spiritual and, religious. However, the context in which Mahatma Gandhi did his walks and protests was different from now. That was when the British were ruling India, and he wanted to get them out in a non-violent way. So that's when he did this. But in this context, now there is no British in India. So I think we are
So it's
free.
not about getting someone out, but rather working together with everyone.
Yes. So we thought in 1948 we got freedom. But then I questioned, did we really have freedom? Or are we still caught up? I mean, Britishers have gone, but we are still caught up in sometimes in narrow modes of thought. I'm a Hindu, you're a Muslim, somebody is a Christian. So I thought that this is a country where there are so many streams coming in. I don't know if you know this, but there is a small group of Jews living in Cochin in the south, and there is one of the oldest synagogues, I think older than the ones in the United States.
Yeah.
Built by the Portuguese.
No, built by the Jews who were shipwrecked and who claimed to be one of the last tribes. So,
Yeah, talking about this, also this religious difference in India, this is also one of the reasons why you started the Walk of Hope, where you walked 6,500 kilometers.
7, if I may.
7,000. 7,500 kilometers.
Counted it.
To unite the people all over India. And to sketch the Indian context, there's different states, different castes, different languages, different religions, and deep economic inequality as well, which divide the country.
Very much.
How did you manage to unite people?
Now, this is a debatable question because I think I planted the seeds. This one walk is not enough, but it was a good beginning. And to walk for 7,500 kilometers, taking 1 year and 4 months, is not such an easy thing to do. And so people, unless you are paid for it, and I was not. So people started wondering, why is this guy doing this sacrifice? He doesn't have to do any such thing. And there were wonderful people walking with me. We had a core group of 80, and sometimes we had hundreds and thousands of people walking with us who came to know that this is coming, the Walk of Hope is coming. And here also I can show you, there were some people who came and walked with us. Interesting, there's Anastasia. She was there in many places. Ashit Kapoor was there. And Bob was there. Rob was there.
Many different people.
Many different people. And Yosa was there.
So, but you tried, you had a vision with it. You tried to plant the seeds. What was your purpose with it? What did you want to achieve?
Right.
You want to achieve harmony, and what did the people needed to do?
Okay. So I said, so what I'm trying to say is, the question was asked if you did succeed. I'm saying that we have only managed probably to a large extent in sowing the seeds. And this especially among the young.
Yeah.
Because anywhere in the world, including India, of course, I think the future of this nation, the future of this world, in the Indian context, of course, the nation, is in the hands of the young. Because your minds are fresh. You have not yet been compartmentalized. Your thinking is free. You have not been brainwashed.
As we want to break open the structures.
Yes. So I think planting the seeds in the young is so important. So we went to school. We concentrated on schools and colleges.
So what did you tell them?
I told them, listen, some of the messages. One message was, look, first remember, whatever be your name, wherever you come from, we are human beings. Just remember this, we are human beings. Why? Because we are all hungry, we eat, we are all born from a womb, nobody falls from heaven. We get sick, we all have a little happiness, we breathe, and then we die finally.
Yeah, you stress the things which are similar in all of us.
Because it is so. Everybody is the same that way. You may be different in color, different in shape.
And do you tell that because we tend to forget, also the youngsters?
Exactly. I said, don't forget this. Because, in India also, I don't know about here, in India, the campuses in universities are very politically divided in the student politics.
Student politics.
Oh yes, there are student groups which are either leaning to the right or to the left, sometimes to the center, but there are groups. So it was very important.
And you think that is a bad thing? I mean, everyone can have his own opinion, right?
Absolutely, but as long as that opinion doesn't destroy the concept that we are human beings. That we are human beings.
And does it destroy that feeling now, in your opinion?
I think if you think that you're a separate section and that you're a little different from humanity, I think it does create problems. I think the basic problems spring from that.
Yeah.
you know, and then they
you shouldn't
grow.
identify yourself with a certain opinion, but you can still hold them. Yeah.
Like, for instance, you can be proud that you belong to a certain section of an ancient civilization and so on. You can be proud. Donkeys don't have any pride. So you can. But that shouldn't prevent us from saying that after all we are human beings. And the human stream is made up of so many rivulets coming into it, and then it becomes an ocean of one humanity. If we can keep this in mind, while I think, in fact, I've also been involved, if you ask me about it, I can tell you, in socio-political issues, especially in the south, in Kerala where I live. And I can tell you how we are trying to handle it.
But for example, I agree that we all are human beings, and we should debate with each other or like see each other as equals. But how do you tell that to the people in a very conflicted zone, such as in Kashmir, for example, where the Walk of Hope ended?
We walked into Kashmir. When we entered Kashmir in Srinagar, the government got very worried. So they wanted to have a police security with all these. So I begged them.
Because they were afraid you were attacked or something.
Yeah, the walk and me. So I begged them, please, this is a peace walk. It would be funny to see all these gunmen walking. But they said we can't help it because if something happens, the government will hold us responsible. So I said, at least do one thing. Keep these guys at a discreet distance. Okay? So they said, okay. So we went into Srinagar. I talked to many young people. Many of the journalists who interviewed me, who were Kashmiris, were very young and they had their own issues. So we had a very, very nice interaction with them. And they said, this is not enough. You come back here and spend a month with us alone, incognito. Because now everybody knows, oh, Sri M is coming. We will tell you exactly what problems we have.
So did you do that?
I haven't yet.
Why not? Not the time yet.
Yeah, no. I didn't get time to do it. I've been wandering around.
But do you still think you already achieved something in Kashmir?
I think at least we opened a dialogue.
Between
We opened a
conflicting
dialogue.
parties.
I must say that some of the Indian government people wanted me to go with them as a team, but I refused to go because I don't want to be identified. I want to do it on my own. So I will go, certainly, and try. I think at least we have opened the dialogue.
Yeah. Also, the Walk of Hope has been extremely successful. The UN has endorsed the Walk of Hope. 10 million fellow Indians have been walking with you or have endorsed it in some way. Why do you think it was so successful? Because of your message of inclusiveness?
One is the message. The other is I'm a very strange creature, you see. Nobody knows if this fellow is Hindu or Muslim or Christian or Jew. Nobody knows. Because whichever religious context people want to discuss, I'm ready to discuss. Because I've studied, I've learned. Okay? So that's also another reason. Then the sheer adventure of being able to walk so much with everybody.
Yeah.
That also counts. So basically, I think people have begun to think that there is a possibility of living together. That may account for it.
Yeah.
Probably.
So before moving on to the context of Europe as well, does anyone in the audience maybe have a question for Sri M? Yes?
Coming back.
Hi there. It's about the difference in spirituality, differences in religion, Buddhism, etc. What's the role maybe of atheism? And could you say something about the role of the Human Rights Convention of the UN, which could be pretty problematic or is sometimes seen as a sort of Western liberal belief system, maybe instead of accepted by orthodox religions in either Judaism or Islam or etc. So for homosexuality or position of women.
Western views in human rights system.
I have this to say, that it's not, atheism is not about, see, we have very good friends who are atheists. It's not anything to do with it. I know many so-called religious people who are very cruel and commit atrocities. The atheist who is good to others is better than the religious person that way. So
No, I think his question was rather, how do Western values conflict with often religious ideas, right?
partly this also.
Okay.
So when we have a discussion as human beings, I said religion, but it also includes all ideologies. I think it doesn't matter what ideology you have, as long as that ideology is not to cause injury or harm to a fellow human being. This much. So otherwise, you can be an atheist, you can be, let me tell you this. In college, when I was growing up, in the south of India, in Kerala, in that context, even now it's ruled by the Communist Party. Yeah. So I myself was a secretary of the students' union called the SFI, which is the Students' Federation of India, which is a red flag, the communists. Well, I didn't get brainwashed. I came out okay, but it's possible that people can get brainwashed. So I know these people. It's not as if they are bad, but so what I'm trying to say is, if you can keep your ideology but not bring in harm to others, it doesn't matter what ideology you follow. As far as the UN is concerned, I'm in no position to comment on it because I don't know how the internal workings are. You may be right that it is more in a Western context, I don't know. But from the people I have met in the UN, I think now there is a concern the other way also. We can't dismiss it. Yeah, even I feel UN is such a big organization and it can do more. True. But it's for us to push them to do more. Not through protests, but I'm sure when young people like you, if at some point you join the UN, things will change. I'm telling you, seriously.
Maybe we can have
Join the UN.
another audience question as well.
Here.
Would you say that religion is something overall something good or something bad? Does it separate more than it unites other people? Or what would you say after having talked to so many people? I can see that it gives many people purpose, or also that if lived peacefully, it is a very good way of also transmitting values and giving meaning to people. But I see also that in many cases it is lived in a way that it's separating people and it leads to wars and it can be misused. And what would you say is prevailing in the end?
A bad or a good thing, religion?
Well, you know how religion starts. Somebody or some group of people have a mystical experience. I mean, you go to any religion. This is how it starts. It could be one person, or in Indian context, many. But in some nations, in some places, it is one person. He has a mystical experience, right? And based on that, formulate some rules and regulations so that people can lead a life which would bring them closer to the experience that he or she had. This is how it begins. The problem is, after some time, because human beings have vested interests, after some time, the organization becomes more powerful than the core. This is where the problems come. My friend, my very close friend, we have to?
Yeah.
My close friend used to say, I don't know if you have heard of him, he is much older than me, he's passed away, his name was Jiddu Krishnamurti. He used to say this favorite story that the Satan, you know what Satan is bad and so on, darkness. And his very good friend went for a walk, which means you can also be friends with Satan sometimes. So he went for a walk, and this is a story, okay? So Satan bent down and picked up something from the lawn, from the grass, and put it in his pocket. So his friend asked him, what did you pick up just now? Satan said, I just picked up the truth, Truth, which is the opposite of Satan, of course, the truth. Satan is supposed to be falsehood and darkness, truth is light, and so I picked up the truth. So his friend said to him, now your days are numbered, you're finished. Because if you picked up the truth and put in your pocket, it's going to finish you off, because you're the opposite. So the devil smiled and tapped him on his shoulders and said, don't worry, friend, I'll organize it. You know what I mean? So, when I'm not saying nothing can run without an organization, I agree. But when that structure, framework becomes more important than the core, then we begin to have problems.
So on the bottom line, would you say now religion, is it more harmful because of all those organizations which are more important than the religion itself?
I think if you think in a personal way that I practice my religion, but I allow others to practice their religion, it's okay. If the moment I say I am the only right person, everything else is wrong, then we are in trouble.
Yeah.
But how do we convince these people who really believe that their religion is the only truth to be open towards others and to be open towards other
In the Western world, we see a lot of Muslim extremism, for example. How do we make that?
I think, again, it depends on the young. If you can do something about it, if you can talk to people about it and try to make them understand, look, we love you, you may be anybody, but please, there are different ways to the truth, perhaps. And even if you think there's one way, we don't believe in it. We leave us alone if it's okay. So I think if the interaction is between the young, things may change. Because the older generation, that not people sitting here, of course, are not thinking that way, but some of the older generation is already got fixed into it. That's part of the story. The other is there are many political forces and power tussles in this matter, which have got integrated with religion.
So we are the young, there are a lot of young people also in the audience. What do we need to do then to overcome these differences?
I tell people, usually the young people, that first, don't start a discussion or a dialogue with any preconceived ideas about anybody. Keep it open. And in the day-to-day existence, especially in the university, do not discriminate against anybody. Okay? And then open up. So let others see that there is a possibility of living openly without getting caught up in this narrowness. I'm not talking about somebody who wants to practice their religion personally. Okay, fine. But you understand what I mean.
With like human interaction, you need to be
very important. It's very important.
It's a one-on-one level.
One-on-one is the only way possible. I can preach, you can have a society, you can do, but this one-on-one, the individual is so important. And that individual should start with a clean slate.
But what is then the role of religious leaders, such as you've also met the Pope? What is the role of the Pope then? Can he do anything as a leading figure?
As an institution.
Yeah.
You know what? I think the Pope, the present Pope, is a little different person than we had before. This is a great ray of hope. Because I think in staying with his own religion, he can bring about changes. I think so. He doesn't have, of course, the Pope cannot say, well, I don't have, this is not. But he can bring about change. I had a very personal talk with him. I had to break
One-on-one.
One-on-one. I had to break the walk for 5 days to go and meet him. And he was very nice. I mean, apart from being nice, we had a nice talk. And one of the things he said to me was, I believe that every saint has a past, and every sinner therefore has a future. I said, but Your Holiness, I don't see any sinners.
Did he agree?
No. He kept quiet. He didn't say anything. He didn't say yes or no. He went to the next subject and he said, Jesus Christ came for the sinners and the low. He broke bread with the poor. He was not with the rich. So I looked at the Vatican. I bent down and didn't say anything.
And did you tell him?
But he was a kind man, a very kind man. And he shook hands with me. And when I did namaste, he did namaste. He said, this is how I said we greet in India. And he said, no. And then I said, I need your help, endorsement for the Walk of Hope. I've just broken it and come. He said, I fully endorse the Walk of Hope, and it's a wonderful thing you're doing. He said, there was another man who walked many hundred years on the streets of Jerusalem. And then he said, I said, I need blessings. He said, can I put my hands on your head? I said, sure.
He blessed you.
Yeah. And then we came off. And because many people standing outside couldn't go close to him, so many were touching me when I came out. See the belief systems, how they build.
Did you also say to him another saying you have said? It's that Buddha was not a Buddhist, Jesus was not a Christian, and Muhammad was not a Muslim. Did you also tell him this?
I didn't.
Why not?
Well, there was no time, first of all, to go into detail. I got 10 to 15 precious minutes during which I had to do all this.
What do you mean with the saying? Elaborate a little bit on the role of religion.
If you put it very simply, there are many aspects to this. If you put it very simply, there was no Christianity when Jesus was around. I mean, not in the sense that there is no Pope, there is nothing. And there was no established systems of Islam when the Prophet was alive. It was just starting, so you can't expect it to happen. And as far as the Buddha is concerned, he himself said, he never said he's a Buddhist. How can the Buddha say that he's a Buddhist? Because the Buddha was looking for freedom. He was not looking for establishing a religion.
So you think religion in itself is not the problem, it is really the organizations that are around?
Yes, I think the goodness that is preached by all religions is great. If you, in this modern world's context, if you see there are negative points, as intelligent human beings, we should be able to eliminate them. Like he said, if you don't want religion, you should have the freedom to say, I don't have a religion, but I believe in humanity. That is the greatest of, you must make a distinction between being spiritual and being religious. Then it doesn't matter really.
But isn't it difficult to keep up religions without an institution, without an organization around?
It is, of course. You can't, I said this before, you cannot run anything without an organization, but you have to be careful. That the structure doesn't become more important than the core. This is all that we need to do. And if there are young people who don't want to have any religion, I would say very happy. It's great. At least you can think full time on humanity instead of getting caught up in rituals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Maybe let's move on to another topic we also wanted to discuss, namely the refugee crisis Europe has been facing in the past years. Why do you think European countries are struggling so much to achieve solidarity of the people with refugees?
Now here you caught me because I'm not so familiar with the European working actually. So I don't want to make any false statements on this. As a human being, I think refugees should be allowed some place to stay and looked after as a human being. I don't know what the inside forces are, what are the hidden, I don't know. But refugees, after all, are refugees from anywhere. But I think there is also the fear that when refugees come from places where there is kind of religious extremism, there is I think there is a fear that they might introduce it in the countries. This may be one of the fears, but I think the way is to tackle that rather than put everybody out.
So tackle the fears of the people.
Yeah.
So how do we do that?
You know what? I wish the young people form a dedicated band of people who would, apart from their studies, don't neglect your exams, go out and interact with people. It is not enough if we discuss. Interaction on hands-on action is so very necessary.
So if you talk with someone and he expresses this fear for other people, what can you tell them?
It depends on why he's afraid of the person. Because if I can find some reason, then I can probably convince him that it is not so. But if it is a chronic inbuilt psychological dislike, I think it will take a long time to.
I think a lot of fears of the people are irrational fears. So people don't often know why or what they're afraid of. So
there is this fear because of the experiences and the media and the reports that we get are meant to make us fearful. So we have to look at it very carefully. I would still say that the hope lies in, it should start from universities, it should start from schools, from colleges. Then I think we can address this problem. And believe me, I don't think it is hopeless. I think it is possible to solve this. I can give you an example. You give me 2 more minutes. It's a political affair, socio-political affair. The context is Kerala, which is the south of India and where I was born. Now, for 22 years or more, 25 years, in the northern part of the state of Kerala, there have been murders, mutual murders, throwing bombs, killing people between the extreme right and the left. It's been going on. Now we have a communist ministry in Kerala in place. Every 5 years it changes. Okay, so we've been watching this for a long time. So when I came for the Walk of Hope, in that particular district, I was very happy and in a way astonished to see that both the right and the left, who are easily distinguishable, were walking with me. Okay. So
were you afraid or not? Were you afraid of it?
No, I was not afraid. You know, somewhere along the line I've thrown my fear out. You're going to die anyway. So I'm sorry, I'm not boasting, but it is so. So I said, if this is the case, if they can walk with us together, maybe in this there is a solution, maybe, that this murdering, mutual murder and throwing of bombs, you know, small bombs are manufactured in car sheds, would cease in some way. With my college little bit of Marxist exposure and knowing the people who are at the top now, some of them were my seniors, no matter if they were the ones who ran away when the police came, doesn't matter. So I contacted the leadership and I said, now you're in power. This is the time when the other side is afraid that you can do what you want and get away with it. And if you do something about this now, you'll be remembered forever because everybody is fed up of this. Families, young people being killed, mutual. So can we initiate the process of a dialogue? They'll never have a dialogue.
And did they take it up, the leadership?
Yes. That's
what did they do?
So the leadership said, if you are ready to be in the middle of this negotiation, we are ready. I said, okay. So I went to the extreme right. Since I can talk on the Bhagavad Gita and the Upanishads, and I know Sanskrit, and I know what. So when I went to them, the chief of that section also said, are you willing to be part of the negotiations? I said, yes. Okay, then we are willing. But we can't say any commitment on either side. But let's start the negotiation. So we started the negotiations without the media. Because you know how it is. If the media comes into the picture, then it might get all twisted up and premature. So we had a discussion. We had 2-3 closed door meetings, including the chief minister, who came without security, which is unheard of. I sat in the middle of, they sat here and they said, I said, look, I'm neutral.
So the extreme left and the extreme right were in one room. They were bombing each other.
It never happened before. And the leaders.
Yeah.
And I said, look, I'm neutral. I'm here. I'm neutral. And the chief minister said, yeah, we know you're sitting in the middle. So we had a lovely discussion. There were 3 discussions. And after that, slowly, it began to settle down. They met each other. They talked to each other. After this, I said, I'm out. So then the media came in. I got myself out. Then even now many people in the media don't know I started this. Of course, now they came to know recently. And what I suggested was in some way followed, because I said the people from the left should go and visit the houses of the right where murders have happened and meet the parents and wives, and you should do likewise.
Did they do?
Yes, they did.
But who convinced them then? The leaders forced the people
I
to
convinced them.
But the people, like you didn't talk to everyone, right?
Now, this is where you're right. So now it has to percolate to the actual working people in both the sections. And I hope that it will, because already some movements have started.
And they are accepting it, or there are some more troubles? Because I can imagine if you're in this group, you hold tight of the group.
So it is difficult, but I think it's thawing now. So this way, in Europe, you said about the problems, if some people can be really in the middle of, not me, nobody knows me, but then I think this process can be.
So we really need moral leadership also maybe from our politicians.
Exactly. And please don't keep the politicians out, because if the politician is willing and if his mind can change, he can do much more than we can do.
Yeah.
Great. Maybe let's move to another audience question, maybe on Kerala or another here on the front. Chris?
Why did
It is working.
why did the people in India accept you as somebody who they want to listen to?
Do you know why?
If you ask me, I'm as astonished as anybody else. I'm not joking. I am not a person who is very sociable and meaty. I prefer solitude. I like to be alone. Even when I travel, I like to be alone. But now I cannot be alone, especially in India. There are always people. I don't know how it started, but I think when I came back from the Himalayas, I decided not to open my mouth and just walk around like anybody else for some years. One of my friends invited me to the Theosophical Society to talk about the Himalayas. That was my first public meeting. I never talked, this was many years ago, okay? 30 years ago. 30, yeah, more than that. So I went and I talked about the Himalayas. I was very nervous, of course, there were butterflies in my stomach. I thought there were going to be 5-6 people, there were 100 people. So what I did was I looked at the person sitting in front of me and pretended that I was only talking to him. I forgot the rest. And then after that, they said this was good. Then it started, and many more people started coming. And then I think they started discovering through interactions that there is some deep experience in this person inside, and that he is not prejudiced, and he means good for people. I think most people in India are convinced about this.
Was it? Sorry. Yeah. Was it also that you were more convinced of yourself afterwards, and that's why others accepted you as well?
Believe me, when I came here, I didn't have any idea on earth what I was going to discuss. Even though a paper was given to me, the subject, I folded it and put it inside because I didn't want to prepare. One of the things about, also applies to your question in a way, one of the things is the human being has infinite potential. Infinite potential. We keep it locked up mainly because of our little stupid calculations. If you can just take it out, then you connect with people one on one. And when you connect with people, then slowly others begin to understand that, well, he is speaking from his heart. It's not some calculated thought about thing. So when this happens, then people begin to give you some respect. It shouldn't go to your head. You have to be very careful because it can go to your head. In India, the Prime Minister sees me, the President sees me. Why should it? They are also human beings. There's nothing big about that. You understand what I... So if we should watch out on this. Otherwise, you get heavy-headed and then you're finished.
Yeah.
I think you're finished.
Yeah. I'm wondering, is there maybe a method to really open up to stop thinking about and stop calculating what you're talking about?
Yeah, but if you're talking about a particular subject, you must have done your homework before.
For sure.
Yeah, because you shouldn't get stuck in the way halfway. But once that is done, when you want to communicate, sit down for a while, just watch your breath for a while, in and out. Don't do anything, just watch it. And clear your mind. And sit down as if you're going to meet somebody afresh. And you don't know it. Then you'll see that you'll be able to put in proper perspective, and you can use the information that you have to do that. This is possible. You wipe your slate clean before you...
So to take a pause.
Yeah, take a pause. Pause is something which has become very rare in civilization nowadays. There's no pause. You know how it is. Moving. If we can rest for a while. And then I'm saying this because you're all young and you have infinite potential. It can do anything. But you have to believe that you can.
I'm trying to connect your saying that we have to take as an individual the steps to have more harmony in our society. On the other hand, I experience the more Western world as a very individualistic society, and we lost the common values as well. Do you see a tension there? That as an individual you should do it, but it's not aimed at the collective.
No, I don't see a contradiction out here because when you say collective, which means there is a common group of ideas and a common way of thinking which people have, which is the collective. When I say individual, I'm saying in relationship. In relationship, have individual relationships with anybody. What I mean is, don't label. Don't. This man is so and so. This is his name. So, this should not be there. That's what I mean.
Another individual than the individualism we know here in the West.
Yeah, that's not what I mean by individualism. Here, what I mean is, do not begin a dialogue. Don't begin a discussion with somebody saying, "Oh, I already know this guy is this." Then there is no dialogue. How can we have a dialogue if we have already concluded?
Yeah, but should you then just not talk to people who already concluded for themselves, or how do you try to open others up as well?
I have met some pretty tough people
Can you tell a story about it?
who do not want to listen to anything. This is the thing, you don't know, you are, and so on. You're misled and things like that. So what I do is first try to develop a friendship with them. I say, okay, you may be right, but let's interact with each other. Let's be friendly. In the beginning, it's difficult, but they come around. After all, I think in every human being there is some good. Yeah, I believe this, really. And so it slowly starts coming up. And then they see perhaps this guy is thinking we should give some thought to it. And this is how, in my life, I have been able to talk to people and try to convince them in some way. When they know that I'm not convincing them for some vested interest, or because I'm standing for an election, or whether I'm looking for power, nothing. So they always are curious. Why is this guy doing all this?
So why are you doing all this?
Because I feel I have to. Because I feel terrible. I feel sad. I feel very pained when I see people suffering. So I can't help doing it. I have to do it. So what to do?
Yeah. Coming back to this individualism here in Europe as well, is this different as far as you have experienced? Is this different in India, the collectivist versus individualist societies?
Actually, I haven't thought about this, but one thing I notice is that it's not really, you can't compartmentalize this into Europe and India or some other country. Everywhere you will find some individuals are like this and some are not.
Yeah.
Maybe the majority is, but there are some who are not. I'm sure many people sitting here must be a little different. Otherwise, why would they come and sit here? See? Oh, maybe out of curiosity, but still. So I think we have to look at it that way.
So we have to look at every person as an individual person.
As a human being.
Yeah.
Who has the same emotions. You know, I have a theory which is very funny. You may not agree with this, but I think this, now that we are going a little bit into the spiritual, but it doesn't matter. I'm sorry. I think there is only one mind. You may call it the universal mind or whatever. And it operates through different centers. I'll tell you why. Because the fact that all of us, you, me, they who are sitting there, have certain common features, apart from physical. Forget about the physical. We all have some fear, common factor. We all have some anger. We all have some affection. We sometimes feel jealous, all of us in some way. So all these emotions are common factors. The reason why I'm angry may be different from the reason why you're angry. Okay, I understand that. The reason why what you fear may be different from what I fear. But fear is a common factor. Therefore, I'm saying all humanity is one. We all have this. And therefore, I think there's one mind which operates through different centers
And what do you mean by minds then? Sorry.
Mind, sorry. And therefore, I believe that since it's kind of one in a way, in an abstract way, let's say, a change that is happening in one end is certainly going to be reflected to the other end. In whatever muted way it goes, it doesn't matter. Which is also the reason why sometimes dictatorships are built up and people are ready to go and kill and do things, because one powerful mind has influenced this whole big mind. And people are ready to do what they're supposed to do. So, therefore, if goodness can be in a few individuals, I think it will affect the entire mind of the world. And the mind is not Dutch or English. Or you know that. Fear is not Dutch, fear is not English, fear is not Indian, it's common. So also is love.
And do you think we share it with all human beings on Earth?
I think so. Yeah. We all share it with all human beings. It's obvious, we just have to look.
Yeah. Before coming to a conclusion, because we have to end soon, is there maybe a last audience question?
Here in front.
Thank you. My question is for you to perhaps clarify your question about individualism in Western societies. Can you rephrase the question, because I would like to hear what Sri M wants to say.
Well, I already kind of heard what I wanted to hear. It was about the kind of individualism. The way Sri M is proposing is that we all as individuals try to plant the seeds. And well, I think we in the Western society talk a lot about individualism in a very different sense. And that's something which is on the other opposite of collectivist societies. So to think as
in a sense that we focus that as individuals, we are the key to our own success. But we should rather focus on we're the key to everyone's success.
Yes.